Welcome back to On the Move with Victor Shi. This is Victor Shi. It is Wednesday, July 26th. Young voters are more important than ever before. Time and time again, people have underestimated us. They have cast us aside. But over and over again, young people have shown up not only on the streets, but also at the ballot box in record-breaking numbers. And that will be no different in 2024. This week in particular is going to be a big week for Gen Zers as Voters of Tomorrow will host its largest youth summit. Unlike Turning Point, the summit will actually feature young people. It'll actually speak to young people and the issues we care about, and it'll equip young people with the tools and messages needed to make sure they are the most effective advocates in their communities. And my guest today is not only going to be a speaker at the Voters of Tomorrow Youth Summit, but she is also the amazing, the incomparable press secretary for President Biden and his administration, Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine, I'm so honored and grateful you are here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Victor, for having me. Very kind introduction. I truly appreciate that. Thank you so much. It's been a while. I've been trying to do this for a long time now.
Yes, it's so great to see you. Well, I mean, there's so much to discuss, but I want to start off with this summit because young organizers, activists, leaders across the nation are basically convening in DC tomorrow for a 3-day youth summit where we'll be giving young people the tools they need to be more effective leaders in their community. And all across the country, young people are facing more attacks on their livelihood, their rights than ever before. And so I'm just wondering, what is going to be your message to these young people and our role in our democracy, especially kind of at this really precarious and difficult moment?
I mean, you said it all. You said it all at the top, and even in your question that you're posing to me, young people couldn't be more important right now in this moment. And they are showing their voices. They're being very loud and very clear on what they want to see out of their government, out of this country. And so, and you've seen it. I think in 2020, you saw young people come out. You saw young people come out in 2022. And so this is an important time. You said it is an incredibly precarious time. It's a dangerous time. Our democracy is on the line. We've seen what the SCOTUS has done, the Supreme Court has done, attacks on our freedom, whether it's reproductive rights or our student loan plan that the president put together to try to give a little bit of breathing room for Americans out there, young people like yourselves out there who have to burden a lot of some very heavy economic responsibilities in this time, especially coming out of COVID. And so there's so much going on in this world, in this country, and young people are going to matter. They are right now the generation, as the president believes, that's going to change the world, that's going to truly, truly have an opportunity to change policy, to change history, to be heard loud and clear. We need them. And so I think tomorrow, I hope the folks that are there will hear that message from me. We'll hear how important they are, why we're excited to be talking to Gen Z, why we're excited about the summit. I think the name of the summit says it perfectly, Leaders of Tomorrow. I mean, these are the leaders of tomorrow. And I have a 9-year-old, and I think about her generation and how that generation is going to change the world and how creative they are, how brilliant they are. And so tomorrow is an important day. We have an opportunity to speak to a group of people, a group of young people, to be even more exact, that need to hear from us, that need to hear from the folks who work here in Washington, D.C., and let them know, here's what's at stake, here's what we've been doing, and here why we need all of you to come be part of this, to come be part of what we're trying to do as we look ahead to the type of future that we want this country to be.
Well, we're so excited to have you. And you and I both know the number of extraordinary things that this administration has done for young people, from climate change through the Inflation Reduction Act to forgiving student loans, despite a far-right Supreme Court and also a really narrow Senate. And can you talk about how President Biden and this administration have centered, engaged, and really delivered for young people? Because at least kind of that I can think of, this administration, at least in recent history, is the administration that has really centered that and really engage young people in the process. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about that and what that's looked like with young people.
Absolutely. I think young people, and the president said this, they're the most engaged, they're the most involved, and he is completely impressed by young people today. And so one of the things, when he started out in this administration, he talked about the crises that are ahead of us. One of them is climate change, right? Climate change is a crisis that we truly need to take on head on. And so we're seeing the extreme heat. We're seeing what extreme heat is doing out west. I think where you're going to school, right, Victor, at UCLA, you see what's going on there, the fires, the heat. It is intense. And we know that's an issue that young people truly care about. They care about the planet. They care about the earth. They care about how we're moving forward and taking care of an environment that has taken care of us. And so the president has been very clear. We need to do everything that we can. He has done more than any other president when it comes to climate change. He's been ambitious. He's had an agenda that's been ambitious. You talked about the Inflation Reduction Act. That is a piece of legislation that is now law that is going to do more to fight climate change than any piece of legislation out there. And so that is important. He's never going to stop. He's never going to stop not doing what we need to do to make sure that we don't leave a planet for my kid and for all of you, that's kind of probably not going to be even hardly livable, right? And so that is a real thing. Just look around what's going on around us, especially these past couple of weeks as we've been going through this summer. And there's other things too. Student loan. Oh my gosh, the student loan debt is so what the president put together. The plan that he put together that the far right and Republicans in Congress have really attacked, have really said they don't want that, even though it's going to help constituents in their own district or in their own state, which is wild to me. We're talking about giving young people who are starting out in their lives a little bit of breathing room so that they can even bring back into the economy, right? So they can get going. And you think about what harm is it going to do to give a break to people who make less than $75,000, right? To give a debt relief to people who make less than $75,000 a year. And we know that is a real burden for young folks. That is truly a burden. And so that is something that the president's going to keep fighting for. He's not going to stop. And the Department of Education has already announced some debt relief for more than $30 billion for millions and millions of Americans across the country. So that is important. And, so that's one part. And there's many other things, too, that the president has really fought behind. When you think about guns in America and how it's killing that is the thing that's killing our kids more than anything else is guns. Can you imagine not being able to go to school and feel safe? Not being able to go to a grocery store and feel safe, not being able to go see a concert and feel safe. And the president has been a leader on this issue, really pushing forth or signing executive orders, more than a dozen, to do everything that we can on the federal level, encouraging Congress, pushing Congress to act on this. And it's not just as president. He's led on this as vice president, as senator, when he did a legislation to ban the assault weapons, which actually helped that 10 years until its sunset back in 2004. And so those are things that are incredibly important. Education, you think about your education, you think about the climate and the environment. You think about safety, people feeling safe, the economy more broadly. Everything that we're doing with the economy is about equity, about not leaving anybody behind. That's every piece of legislation that this president has signed that has an economic policy component to it. That's what it's done.
It's so expansive and so incredible. And you mentioned the contrast between what President Biden has done and also what Republicans are doing, or should I say not doing. And we've seen this incredible response, I think, from both President Biden, but also Vice President Harris.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you about the role that she has, because I think it's something that doesn't get enough attention from the media, from people online. And that's just how aggressive she's been in responding to a lot of the attacks on young people. You think of what happened after Dobbs, what happened in Florida last week. Can you talk about Vice President Harris's role in responding to some of the attacks from the far right and her role in this administration?
So I appreciate the question. I think it's so important, and I think hearing from me, I think is important for others to hear from as well, as I talk about the vice president and her partnership with the president and how key and important player she is in all of the just policies that I just laid out. Look, the vice president last Friday gave an incredible, effective speech. She is an effective leader and messenger. We've seen that the last 2 years. Her speech was so incredible. And it is at a time, as you just laid out, Victor, where officials are trying to rewrite history. They've been incredibly extreme with that. And you think about, to teach young people that enslaved people benefited from slavery, you're banning books and you're trying to take away opportunities for young people to learn about African American history, which, by the way, is our history. It's
Right,
all of our
right.
history. So she traveled. She traveled to Florida to take this head on, and she was brilliant. It was powerful. She spoke the truth. She went truth to power, as you hear. And just as she did so powerfully in North Carolina after the state enacted a devastating abortion ban a few weeks ago, and so she's taking all of these issues head on. And let's not forget, she went to Nashville right after
Yes.
right after what we saw in Nashville with the Tendency 3, and push back against the efforts to silence legislators standing up for gun violence in the wake of that tragic school shooting. As we're talking about our young people being killed, but the number one thing they're being killed by are guns. And so, I'll end here because I'm laying out some really dark things here. But one thing that I want to say here is what the president has said, and also the vice president believes, is that they believe in optimism, a sense of optimism about our future. And I think that's what young people also want to hear. Right? I think that's something they're going to want to hear tomorrow. Yes, it's dark, it's hard. Democracy is on the line. There's so many of our freedoms that are being attacked, but we have to be optimistic. And that's what you see from the tenacity of our young people, from who are responsible. It's their responsibility to build up on our responsibility to build up on our nation's next generation of leaders. That's what we're trying to do here. That's what the president is trying to do. That's what the vice president is trying to do. So we have to be optimistic. And one thing that he always says about this country, and he always says this, one word he describes it as possibilities. And I think that is also very important to say. And that's something that I hope I communicate tomorrow.
If I can end with one really quick last question.
Sure,
One of the
sure.
things that young people care so much about is diversity and representation. I know we talked a lot about President Biden, Vice President Harris, but this has also been an historic administration because of so many diverse people in this administration. And you, of course, are the first Black openly LGBTQ plus person to stand behind the podium every day making history. Can you quickly talk about what that means to you and this administration's diversity and representation?
First of all, I have to really lift up the president, because without a leader like that, who sits behind the resolute desk, who's the president of the United States, who understands how important it is to have people in this administration that looks like the country, right? And he understood that and still continues to do everything that he can to push that diversity. And he says diversity is actually our strength.
Yes.
And that's something that we have to remember. And to hear that from a leader, especially this tough week, right? I just talked about what legislators or leaders in Florida were trying to do, rewrite history, which is ugly and truly disturbing. And we've seen that time and time again with banning of books. We've seen that with anti-LGBTQ plus legislation. We've seen that with the attacks on women's healthcare. So we see that over and over again. And you think about what the president did yesterday with the Emmett Till monument for Emmett Till and his mom, Mamie, and just lifting up. And in that message, he said how important it is to know all of our history and how we can't erase it, and how we have to make sure that we tell the truth. And it is our strength. Our diversity is indeed our strength. And so that's what you see in this administration. It is completely an honor for me to stand behind that podium with all of the communities that I represent and speak on behalf of this president. And I'm speaking to the American people on behalf of this president. It is an honor. It is truly an honor. And I respect that honor. And I try to do it the best that I can every day. And I hope that I represent him the best way that I can every day. And I hope I make all of those communities that I represent proud. And so it is again, a privilege an honor to be here, to do that every day, to be in this office in the West Wing, and to be talking to you, Victor, and being able to answer these questions about how important it is to have diverse voices here, to have diverse perspectives here. And I hope young people look at this administration and feel like this is an administration for them, and feel like we are fighting for them every day, and feel like this is a president that believes in them and wants them to become the leaders of tomorrow, right?
Yes.
To become the change makers of tomorrow. And that's what I hope young people understand and see.
Absolutely. Well, we are so inspired by you. We are so grateful for everything that you are doing and this president is doing. Thank you so much. And I cannot wait to see you tomorrow in person for a great speech. Thank you so much, Karine.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Victor. Appreciate you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Well, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre is so amazing. If you haven't seen her live behind the podium yet, I mean, you must. She is delivering this administration's message and policies and accomplishments unlike anyone else, and she is so good up there. And if it's not clear already, I mean, this is an administration that isn't just one person, right? I think that often gets left out of the equation. This is an administration that looks like America, that delivers for America, and that's something that I don't think gets as much attention. So I'm so grateful to have people like Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre behind that podium and serving in that administration every day. And I hope everyone just sees how expansive a lot of these things are. I mean, historic accomplishments, things that are delivering for young people, for communities of color, for people who have been left out of government and policy for so long. But that is what this administration is about, and it's incredible. So thank you to Karine Jean-Pierre for joining me today. Thank you to everyone here watching this episode of On the Move. I will be back with more episodes next week at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, right here on youtube.com/Politicon or on my Twitter page at VictorShe2020. Thank you, everyone, and I will see you next week.